All right, let's talk about Apple's AirTags and the stalking situation, or the anti-stalking features that exist. Apple obviously knew this was going to be an issue. We talked about it. I thought maybe even their consideration around this stuff may have been the reason the thing kept getting delayed as they worked on whatever their Find My software and things like this. They put this in where if somebody were to... Okay, so first off, we talked about it in the context of what if somebody steals your thing? If somebody steals your thing, you don't want them getting notified that they have an unknown AirTag near them because you want to track where it went. Mm-hmm. On the flip side, what if some nefarious individual wants to track the whereabouts of another individual and they plant this on them? Okay, another problem. And so Apple had to decide, what does this timeline look like? How much time should an AirTag be away from you and following someone else before that someone else is notified on their phone that that unknown AirTag is near them? In other words, they're being tracked. Mm-hmm. And what they appear to have landed on is 3 days. The number is 3 days. Now, Willie, dude, I don't need to tell you that 3 days of somebody tracking your whereabouts, they know everything about you in 3 days. They just shoved that in the sea. I'm not telling anybody to do it. They dropped this little guy in between the cushion on your car. They got your whole life, man, in 3 days.
Yeah. 5 minutes early.
You don't even need 3 days. Yeah, no. Willie Doo goes everywhere he needs to go in 5 minutes. Yep. No, I mean, more or less. But for everyone's going to be different. So the Washington Post, by the way, isn't that owned by Jeff Bezos? Vin loves that stuff. Look at him. He woke up for that one. He almost took his winter jacket off for that one. Owned by Jeff Bezos. We just put that as full disclosure. Uh-huh. One of the reporters decided to be willingly tracked by another reporter working there and said, okay, let's see what you find out and let's see what kind of notifications I get if I have your AirTag. So one reporter registers the AirTag to himself, herself, and then plants it on the other one. 3 days later, the iPhone says, hey, there's this AirTag following you. You might want to know about it. And then the AirTag itself for 15 seconds makes an audible beep. You know that little beep that it makes? Mm-hmm. Now, fact number one. The only reason this person is getting notified even 3 days later is because they have an iPhone themselves. 50% of people in the U.S. and even more globally have an Android device. Mm-hmm. They get nothing. They're being tracked forever. Guy like Vin with a Samsung, I'm tracking him forever. It's never going to notify him on Android what's going on. But that's not even the important part, because like I said, and like this individual that did the article said, 3 days is enough. They got my home address.
Right.
I went home. Yeah, 3 days, you're going to go home. You're going to go to work. You're going to go to your restaurants. And it's pinpoint. Obviously, it's pinpoint. They got the ultra. What makes it good is what also makes it potentially problematic. You see, they're talking about domestic violence. They're talking about all the potential ways in which it could be used in a nefarious way. Now, you might be saying, and I believe you did say this prior when you saw the article, well, so what? Tile was doing it forever. Why didn't they take that kind of heat? And it's because of the brand that does it and the footprint. This is the biggest, most recognizable tech brand there is. When they do it, people pay attention. All of a sudden, everybody and their grandmother knows it's happening. Prior to that, it stays more niche and the general public plays around with it a little bit less. If we're talking about saturation of trackers, Apple doing it is another level to it. Selling 4-packs. These babies are going to be floating around. And people might be tempted to use them in ways that they shouldn't. So now here's the question. They selected 3 days. Now, the reason they select 3 days, because they said they wanted to balance the risk factor of possibly being stalked or tracked, along with the potential that people will be annoyed by the fact that if they're borrowing each other's things, they're being treated like some sort of they're being threatened or scared that something's really off, when in reality, they're just borrowing their friend's thing that happens to have an AirTag with it.
Right.
So what is the right amount of time? What is the right balance? Apple's a smart company. They went with 3 days. They're trying to balance the annoyance of getting notifications that are not accurate with notifications that you're really going to want to know if you have this unknown AirTag been following you for 3 days. What's the right amount of time?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I guess if you're being stalked, you would want to know like immediately.
But you understand they got to balance both sides.
Yeah.
They got to pull the balancing act in order to put the product out. The other thing is, it's not like these are so savvy in the sense they don't need any type of special connection. They're on. As long as iPhones are around, which they are, no matter where you go, about 1 billion, that's Batman status. These babies are working.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough situation.
You're going to stick to 3 days. You like it.
No, I think it should be less.
Less. 1 day.
I'm thinking like maybe like an hour or something. You get a prompt, whether or not like getting tracked or something.
So if
You accept it or not.
if there's an AirTag that does not belong to you and you have an iPhone and it's been traveling with you, or I should say your iPhone, beside your iPhone or near you for 1 hour, you want a notification.
Yeah, I guess so. Because the overall negative of being stalked is like way worse for 3 days. Rather have it for an hour.
Well, now that Will says
It can't be instant, right? Because like,
well, I guess it could too. The only thing, like,
It could be distance. Couldn't it be distance, proximity based? Once it's a certain distance away from the original iPhone, period, it's going to notify any other iPhone.
well, that's annoying.
Yeah. It's a tough decision to make, but Apple had to make it, and they may have to change it. They may get some pressure. How many stories are you going to need to see come out? And look, I'm not saying it's unfortunate that we can't have the technology and everybody behave themselves, because it's cool technology, right? At the end of the day, but it's just not historically what human beings do, behave themselves. Not all of them. And so inevitably you end up with situations.
Yeah.
Vin, you're going with 1 hour as well. You want a quick notification that one of these has been planted on. You want to try it out? I'll hide this in your car.
Like, what are the
No, he'll never find it. He doesn't have an iPhone. He'll never find out.
what are the use cases for these?
They're supposed
Honestly, like, what's the commercial? Like, what?
your keys. You put it on your keys.
You put it on your keys, and
You
then,
put it in one of these.
I lost my keys, and
then your phone guides you back to it.
phone guides me back to it. Then notifying other phones. It's also notifying other iPhones around wherever my keys would be. Or no, what do you?
So if you register this AirTag to your phone,
Yeah.
and then you lose it or it gets far away from you, you can keep tracking its whereabouts without anybody around it being notified.
Okay. Yeah.
But what we're talking about specifically here is the individuals near it that are potentially have had it planted on them. Those are the individuals that we're referencing here.
And how are they to determine
Their
those
iPhone,
cases?
their iPhone will pop up with a notification, hey, there's an unknown AirTag nearby that's been whatever the message is traveling with you. I mean, I think
And they're saying what? It has to be how close to you right now. Or
it's been the key part here is that it's been traveling alongside your iPhone, and it doesn't belong to your iPhone. It hasn't been registered to your iPhone.
and that's 3 days. Yeah.
See, like there's the prompt. Will, if you go back to the original article, and this is important, there are a series of prompts. It says AirTag found moving with you. The location of this AirTag can be seen by the owner. Then the next safety alert says your current location can be seen by the owner of this AirTag. This AirTag may be attached to an item you are borrowing. If this AirTag is not familiar to you, you can disable it and stop sharing your location. AirTag detected near you, and then it will tell you to remove the cover and remove the battery.
Imagine how that feels, though.
Woo! You're just
What
chilling
if
at home
you're-
watching. You're just chilling at home watching Netflix, and you get a notification: AirTag found moving with you. You see what I'm saying? It's a big deal.
Yeah,
It's the
very
most
scary.
accessible, most marketed global tracking device that we've ever seen. It's a much bigger deal than it seems like on the surface. It seems really fun in the commercial, and like you don't have to consider. But I know Apple considered all this. They would have had to. But it's more when you put out a really easy to use, user friendly tracking device. How can you imagine that everyone's going to use it the right way? You just can't. It's
Most people will use it the right way.
absolutely 99% of people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But they have to account for the other use cases.
They have to, or they don't. I mean, they put out the product. I don't know to what degree they're responsible. That depends on what customers think. It depends what guys like you, it depends what the audience here thinks, what is their responsibility level. Because I don't know. I mean, it's not like it's illegal or something.
What you think about it, like if something significant ever happened, though.
Yes, that's what
and
I'm
then
saying.
You get the brand associated with the activity.
Absolutely. Dude, he doesn't want to say it, but like if some criminal activity took place and then you have and it was a terrible one, a high profile one, and then it turns out that the AirTags enabled that individual.
Yeah.
And it's just now, look, for the record, some people can read this the wrong way, like we're being critical of Apple. That's the person's responsibility, but it's just Apple trying to avoid the fallout of having any association with such a thing.
Right.
It's just a corporate strategy thing of like, how can we minimize the potential for this negative effect and association? And then that's why they put the stalking thing in at all.
Yeah. And now there's articles about it.
Well, then I think you need to notify immediately and have hourly reminders or
yeah. Well, that's the thing is there's also individuals that are probably just not even going to realize what that means. You get so many prompts on your phone. Yeah. They're like, AirTag's traveling with you. They're like, okay, another notification, swipe it away. Like there's that potential too.
Sure.
But more importantly, it's the fact that the 50% of people who don't have iPhones are never going to get a notification, or that 50% in the U.S. But,
no, that needs to change. That needs to be coordinated and shared.
So like Google
and
Apple have to communicate on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a lot more helpful to end users.
Yeah.
Because, if, man, I don't know. I'm just thinking high school kids, and they're so small and easy to set up. Anyway, it's hard. It's hard to be making things like this and having to account for this variety of scenarios like we're doing right now. That's a huge complexity. I realize that people have high standards. Apple's got a few bucks, lots of engineers. People have high standards.